Comment down below where you're watching from and don't forget to like and subscribe if you hate Karen. I bought my little cedar-sided bungalow on Cottonwood Court for the same reason most people fall in love with a first home. It promised quiet routines and just enough yard to stretch out after work. Every paycheck for 3 years funneled into transforming that patch of crabgrass into an oasis. I rebuilt the deck, strung Edison bulbs over a stone fire pit, and, my proudest splurge, installed a 24-foot, kidney-shaped pool edged with slate tile. The installation sucked my savings account down to a number that would make a financial planner faint, but on a 104-degree July afternoon, gliding through cold turquoise water feels like holding a winning lottery ticket. Mornings start with a mug of coffee on the diving ledge, steam curling into dawn. Evenings end the same way, only the mug becomes a frosted glass of iced tea, and cicadas supply the soundtrack. The neighborhood kids' laughter drifts over fences while sprinklers tick-tick-tick in polite unison. At night, pool lights turn the water sapphire, bats dip low for insects, and the scent of blooming jasmine fills the air. It's suburban serenity distilled. I never pictured myself as the kind of resident who memorizes bylaws or sparks conference room shouting matches. The HOA existed as a line item on my mortgage escrow, annoying but harmless, like pollen season or junk mail. My relationship with it was transactional. They sent quarterly dues reminders, I mailed checks. No drama. No warnings tacked to my door. At that point, the most exciting thing to cross my property line had been a runaway skateboard. But tranquility can be fragile. Sometimes it shatters in a single sentence, a single knock, or, in my case, the arrival of Karen, whose name I wouldn't truly grasp until the first letter she slid into my mailbox. The first warning arrived on cream-colored HOA letterhead slipped beneath my front mat like a venomous calling card, your turf exceeds approved height by 0.25 inch. I laughed, mowed the lawn, and thought that was that. A week later, another missive declared my cedar mailbox sandstone beige rather than the board-sanctioned desert taupe. I repainted. I complied. I refused to let paperwork sour Cottonwood Court's jasmine sweet evenings. But Karen, our newly minted HOA president, was just lacing up for the real marathon. She traveled the cul-de-sac with a clipboard under one arm and the bylaws under the other, reciting clauses the way a preacher quotes scripture. Neighbors dubbed her Commander Karen behind closed blinds. To her face they forced smiles, fearful of petty retribution. The tipping point came 2 months later when a crew installed 6 sleek solar panels on my bungalow's south roofline. County permits were taped to my front window in neon pride, yet 3 days afterward I opened my mailbox to a certified cease and desist stamped urgent. The solar array, Karen insisted, violated HOA Bylaw 11B regarding non-conforming reflective surfaces. Each sunrise, she claimed, my panels would blind dog walkers and plunge neighborhood aesthetics into chaos. Fines ballooned, $50, then $100, then $200 per day, until removal. I attended the next HOA meeting armed with state statutes that protect renewable energy. Karen, perched at the folding table dais, countered by thumping her manicured nails on Section 7A of the rulebook and overstressing every syllable, architectural, committee, approval. Our debate seesawed past dusk while residents exchanged weary glances. My argument of state supremacy met her hymn of HOA sovereignty, and no verdict emerged. That night, walking home beneath Edison bulbs, I felt the spell of Cottonwood Court fracture. The pool lights glowed sapphire, but their comfort dimmed beneath the thought that compliance had limits, and I'd finally located mine. When early September's calendar demanded a software security conference 2 hours south, I left Cottonwood Court reluctantly, patting the slate tile that rimmed my kidney-shaped pool as though it were a loyal pet. I double-checked the filter, set the backyard cameras to high sensitivity, and invited my next-door friend Miles Bennett to snag any stray mail. Friday at dawn, 27 hours into my trip, my phone pinged. Miles had texted 1 photo and 6 words, "Man, you've got incoming heavy armor." The picture froze my pulse. A yellow dump truck idled outside my fence, a compact bulldozer waited behind it. Standing in their shadow, white capris, live laugh love t-shirt sparkling. Was Karen, palms clasped as if consecrating the ground. I called him on speaker while steering my Subaru Outback onto the interstate's shoulder. Tell me this is a prank. Wish it were, Miles answered over crackling wind. Crews say they're decommissioning your pool. Something about an unapproved water feature. They can't touch a licensed pool. I barked, slamming back onto the freeway. Get video, everything. Traffic blurred. The Outback's engine whined protest, but I flogged it past semi-trucks as if outrunning a tornado. 93 minutes later, 27 minutes faster than physics recommended, I fishtailed into Cottonwood Court. Officer Vega would later note tire impressions angled like italic punctuation across my driveway. What greeted me, though, was not punctuation but apocalypse. 1/3 of my cedar fence lay in jagged planks. A dune's worth of tan grit cascaded from the dump truck's raised bed into the once turquoise pool. Sand tunneled across slate coping, buried chaise cushions, dusted rosebushes, polluted every crevice of the paradise I'd purchased one sweat-salted paycheck at a time. And there was Karen, scowling because the truck's bulk blocked her pearlescent BMW convertible. I strode forward, boots crunching debris. What in all blazing counties are you doing? She turned, startled, then produced her professional martyr smile. Oh good, you're back. Per HOA Bylaw 12C, we're remedying non-conforming water installations. You ignored repeated notices. I never received a single one. We mailed them, she said, confidence lacquered thick. Besides, empirical research shows poorly maintained pools drag property values. I gestured to the immaculate filter still humming beneath a mountain of quartz grit. Poorly maintained. The dump truck driver hesitated, lever frozen mid-tilt, eyes flicking between us like a referee unsure which fighter holds the rules. Karen clapped sharply. Keep going. His shoulders slumped, sand resumed its roar. Somewhere inside me, a circuit broke. I wasn't the vigilante type, but survival instincts occasionally don hard hats. I sprinted past Karen, vaulting splintered boards until boot soles clanged against steel tracks. College summers at my uncle's construction yard whispered muscle memory. I cranked the ignition of the bulldozer, diesel thunder answered. Stop him, Karen screeched. Workers froze, unwilling to pit a paycheck against homeowner fury. I throttled forward, bucket raised, slipping it under the downward sand stream. The driver, catching on, eased his hydraulics so the flow arced neatly into my scoop. Our eyes met, silent alliance formed. The bulldozer's gauges brought old familiarity. Hydraulic pressure, tilt angle, fuel burn. I loaded half a ton of grit, pivoted, and lumbered toward the street. The BMW glittered sunbeams like a target reticle. Karen sprinted in wedge sandals, an ostrich in a panic. I didn't bury the car. I sculpted a 4-foot berm directly before its grille, blocking escape. Sand slithered down the windshield like an hourglass announcing her rain's last grains. I killed the engine. Adrenaline howled in my ears. Neighbors' front doors cracked open, phones lifted to record. Sirens wailed in the distance. I stepped off the tracks, breathed jasmine-tinged air heavy with dust, and waited for law, and judgment, to arrive. Squad car strobes painted the cedars red and blue as 3 cruisers skidded against curbs. Officer Reina Vega, the same patrolwoman who once ticketed my 40 and a 30, approached slowly, palm resting near her holster. She scanned the toppled fence, the sand-engorged pool, the bulldozer idling like a sleeping dragon, and finally the artificial dune barricading Karen's BMW. Her eyebrow hiked Everest high. Mister, she checked my license. Mr. Page, care to explain? Before I could, Karen exploded from behind the sand wall, arms pinwheeling. He threatened me. He vandalized my vehicle with heavy machinery. Officer Vega lifted a hand. One at a time. I have approvals, I interjected, producing a laminated packet from my glove box. County pool permit, 5-year-old HOA variance letter, state solar access statute. She entered my property, destroyed my fence, filled my pool with sand, zero notice. That is a blatant lie, Karen shrilled. The board authorized remediation. Board? I echoed. Or just you? Neighbors formed a gallery along sidewalks, Miles holding his phone aloft, Mrs. Abrams from across the way clutching her schnauzer. Teenagers filming TikToks behind hibiscus shrubs. Collectively they nodded my direction whenever Karen spoke. Officer Vega motioned to the work crew. Who hired you? A foreman named Darrell stepped forward, boots dusted beige. Lady with the clipboard, he said, thumb jerking toward Karen. She paid half up front, said HOA sanctions covered the rest. Did you see a court order? He shuffled. No, ma'am. While Vega gathered statements, I scrolled security camera footage on my phone. The gate smashed by bobcat forks, sand pouring like sinful hourglass, Karen directing like a maestro from hell. I airdropped the clip to the officer. She watched, lips pinched tight. Finally, she spoke. Ma'am, you've orchestrated destruction of private property. That's a felony if damages exceed $5,000. Karen's complexion pinwheeled between rouge and ash. This is a misunderstanding. The HOA will reimburse him. No, Officer Vega corrected gently. Your insurance will. He'll file charges, the court will decide liability. But he barricaded my car, Karen wailed. I shrugged. Technically, the sand is on public roadway easement. A city tow truck can remove it for a fee. She pivoted to me, voice his soft. You'll regret this. I already do, I replied, staring at my buried paradise. Officer Vega instructed the crew to stand down and summoned a city cleanup unit. She documented everything. Measuring fence injury, photographing tire impressions on slate, sampling sand for weight calculations. Hours later, the bulldozer was towed. The dump truck rolled off empty. Street lamps flickered alive, revealing a cratered backyard that resembled a lunar dig site. I sank onto a patio chair, one leg warped under sand weight, and allowed exhaustion to swamp adrenaline. Cottonwood Court's crickets resumed timid chirps, as if unsure which anthem to sing. At 11 p.m. An email pinged from the HOA board, emergency session tomorrow, attendance mandatory. For the first time since installing solar panels, I smiled. The community hall smelled of burnt coffee and printer toner. Folding chairs formed a semicircle before a dais draped in a faded flag. Half the subdivision showed, arms crossed, murmurs buzzing. At center sat Karen, flawless bun tight enough to carbon date, flanked by two sympathetic board members clutching a 3-inch bylaw binder like a security blanket. I entered with Officer Vega's incident report under one arm, the security camera USB in my pocket, and plaster dust still in my hair. Miles gave me a thumbs up from the second row. The secretary, a nervous retiree named Paula, called the meeting to order. Agenda Item 1, Pool Remediation Action Review. Karen leaned into the microphone. Yesterday's events were necessary code enforcement, she began. Unchecked water features breed mosquitoes, point of order, I cut in, quoting parliamentary procedure she loved so much. Paula nodded. I stepped to the lectern. I submit Exhibit A. I plugged the USB. The projector threw video onto the cinderblock wall, dump truck smashing cedar, sand roaring, Karen giving a thumbs up. Gasps rippled. Karen flicked her gaze toward friendly board members, but found only stunned faces. Exhibit B, I added, placing a folder of neighbor affidavits on the table. Statements chronicled Karen bragging about shutting down the solar rebel at bunco night, threatening fines unless windows were washed bi-weekly, ordering teens off sidewalks for skateboarding. Murmurs turned to audible dissent. A silver-haired man stood. I moved to remove Karen Wilkinson as HOA president effective immediately. Robert's rules erupted like popcorn. Motions flew: removal, censure, reimbursement authorization. Paula tried to scribble minutes, papers fluttered. The vote passed with record unanimity, only Karen opposed. She rose, voice crackling. You're making a grave mistake. I've protected property values. By burying them under sand, someone shouted. Officer Vega, present for security, stepped forward. Ms. Wilkinson, please remain civil. Karen snatched her bylaw binder, stormed out to a standing ovation. I exhaled, knees suddenly gelatin. Interim president duties fell to Judge Randolph Woolsey, a retired circuit court judge whose calm baritone restored order. He proposed shrinking the bylaws from 300-plus pages to something that fits on a long lunch menu. The room laughed, relief unbuttoned collar tightness. After adjournment, neighbors clustered around me offering help. Mrs. Abrams Sangria, lads with shovels, a landscaper with a bobcat. Cottonwood Court transformed into a volunteer brigade. Under string lights, we filled wheelbarrows, vacuumed grit from filters, wiped slate joints. By dawn, the pool's bottom shimmered faintly beneath 3 inches of murky water. Progress. Insurance adjusters arrived midday, clicking photos, tut-tutaying costs. HOA's liability carrier had no wiggle room: destruction on video, unauthorized entry, president liability. A claim sheet ballparked restitution at $23,500. I whistled. Miles clapped my shoulder, muttering, expensive revenge but worth every penny that isn't yours. As crews pumped sludge and pressure-washed tile, I brewed iced tea for volunteers, unsweetened but spiked with triumphant glee. No one feared bylaws. Judge Woolsey was drafting fresh ones with neighbor input. Cottonwood Court felt reborn, jasmine scent mixing with wet stucco, the air somehow lighter once the Queen abdicated. Restoration became a summer-autumn symphony. Insurance hired Aqua Restore Incorporated, whose team arrived with suction trucks, submersible pumps, and can-do grins. First they vacuumed 40 tons of sand, each hose gurgle singing my wallet's relief. Slate tiles cracked by bulldozer treads were pried up and replaced. I upgraded to frost-resistant porcelain at the insurer's dime. A new cedar fence, taller, tongue and groove, reclaimed the boundary Karen had shattered. Between contractor visits I met with Judge Woolsey on his porch. Using yellow legal pads and sun-brewed tea, we untangled labyrinthine bylaws. He handled legal wording, I provided homeowner perspective. By September, draft rules numbered 15 concise pages: grass height reasonable, solar panels explicitly protected, pools governed only by county code. Cottonwood Court residents reviewed and cheered. Meanwhile Karen's absence echoed. Her BMW remained parked behind a realtor's for sale sign for 3 tense weeks. She avoided neighbors, stalking to her mailbox at dawn like a disgraced monarch retrieving exiled decrees. Rumor said prospective buyers balked after Googling sand pool incident. Eventually she rented a U-Haul at sunrise and vanished without goodbye. Later we learned she'd bought an acreage outside city limits, no HOA, no neighbors within shouting distance. The irony tasted like sweet corn. My pool reopened the first Friday of October. Aqua Restore insisted on christening it. They presented a mini lifesaver cake iced sea blue. I invited every volunteer plus Officer Vega, who toasted with sparkling cider, to homeowners who stand their ground, without burying cars next time, okay? Laughter bubbled across the deck. Evenings regained ritual rhythm: coffee steam at dawn, iced tea at dusk, cicadas trading gossip with bats swooping low. Yet tranquility felt evolved, weathered, resilient, as though the cedar bungalow and I had earned new rings like a storm-tested oak. One Saturday Miles projected the security camera footage onto a bedsheet in his backyard. Families arrived with lawn chairs, popcorn, Mrs. Abrams' legendary sangria. We roared when Karen tried hurdling sand in wedge heels, paused to applaud the bulldozer pivot, and booed each bylaw citation that scrolled across the screen like villain subtitles. Children cheered. Parents high-fived, my cheeks hurt from grinning. Late that night, after chairs folded and lights clicked off, I floated alone. The water hugged me cool and forgiving. Overhead, Orion climbed the sky, centuries-old sentinel reminding humans that territorial skirmishes are but sparks in cosmic dark. I exhaled tension, inhaled jasmine, closed my eyes. I no longer mistook the HOA for harmless bureaucracy, vigilance would stay sharp. Yet community proved stronger than authoritarian zeal. A mosaic of voices could, when roused, overrule a single shrill whistle. On Cottonwood Court, that mosaic now gleamed brighter than any solar panel. Winter tiptoed in on desert-cool breezes smelling of creosote. The revised bylaws passed unanimously, mailed with a neighborly cover letter instead of a threat. Monthly HOA gatherings transformed into potlucks under the clubhouse pergola. Children chased lantern light across grass unmeasured by rulers, and solar arrays sprouted on roofs like metallic sunflowers. Officer Vega dropped by one evening, off duty, to admire the porcelain coping. "Pool looks bulletproof now," she joked. "Sandproof, at least," I answered, offering chai. We chatted about everything except citations. She confessed the precinct referred to my escapade as the Sandbox Revolt during coffee breaks. Across the street, Miles repurposed salvaged cedar planks into a little free library. He stamped a brass plaque, built from tyranny's leftovers. Neighbors contributed thrillers and gardening guides. Even Mrs. Abrams' schnauzer posed for photos beside it. Occasionally, real estate agents toured empty houses, clients murmuring over curb appeal. One paused before my bungalow, noting solar panels and fresh fencing. I overheard the agent explain, communities tight-knit. They take care of each other. I smiled from behind my newspaper, reputation mattered more than resale value. December's HOA newsletter featured a spotlight column on resilience, penned by Judge Woolsey with understated wit. He compared bylaws to seatbelts, protective, not restrictive. At the bottom he credited Homeowner Page for reminding us all boundaries and courtesy can coexist. Sometimes I caught memories whiff of sand, phantom grit, but it no longer triggered fury. It triggered gratitude. I had allies, voice, and laugh lines carved by victory knights. The bungalow felt less like a fortress, more like a chord in a song. Spring crested, scattering Palo Verde blossoms across sidewalks. On the incident's first anniversary, Cottonwood Court held a block barbecue. Smoke wafted from grills, strings of bulbs bloomed overhead. Someone tacked a bedsheet to my new fence and replayed the infamous video. Now edited with comedic banjo and slow-motion replay of the bulldozer ballet. New neighbors gaped, veterans recited lines in unison. When the clip climaxed, sand wall thudding before the BMW, the crowd erupted, not in malice, but in communal catharsis. We'd survived something absurd and emerged friendlier. Officer Vega raised a mason jar, I clinked mine, echoing laughter. As twilight deepened, I slipped away to the pool. Water mirrored a sky bruised pink gold. I set a miniature toy bulldozer on the coping, its plastic bucket filled with confetti sand. Lifting a glass of jasmine iced tea, I spoke aloud though no one listened. Here's to lines drawn, then redrawn together. Here's to neighbors who know bylaws belong beneath people, not above them. And here's to every homeowner who discovers courage rumbling like diesel under the hood. Behind me, Cottonwood Court hummed, a harmony of clinks, chatter, distant guitar. Ahead, the pool light flicked on, casting ripples over slate like living stained glass. I let the glass touch my lips, tasting coolness and memory intertwined, and descended the ladder. The water was as it had always been, calm, buoyant, forgiving, yet it felt different because we were different. No dictator held the cul-de-sac hostage, no unseen fine lurked in mailboxes. The oasis was secure, not by isolation, but by collective will. Floating on my back, I studied Orion yet again, those indifferent stars glowing over triumph and triviality alike. I realized the true victory wasn't a pristine pool or shortened bylaws. It was the knowledge that when tyranny shovels sand into your life, sometimes the best response is to fire up the bulldozer, then invite everyone over to watch the replay under hanging lights.